So first, hello everyone. I hope you all are awake, because it's a long day. I woke up at 4, so it feels like it, so bear with me. I'm tired too. So my talk today will be about server-side rendering with GraphQL and Next. And you might ask yourself, why actually these two technologies? And my answer would be like, yeah, they both have same core. They spark joy. And this is what we want to have, actually. We want to enjoy our life. But I have to admit, I'm a front-end developer with many, many years of experience, and I have a problem. Like, we build front-ends which looks like this, and this makes me hate JavaScript somehow and love it in the same time. So, and yeah, before we try to solve this madness, I will introduce myself. So, I'm organizer of Web Zurich meetup in Zurich, where everyone is welcome to give a talk. We do such small conference like basically every month. And I work as a front-end consultant at a company called Even, where we help different companies to deliver actually their products and try to make them better even on the way. So my talk today will be about Next.js. Next.js is a server-side rendering application framework which is built on top of Vue.js, and it was made by these two brothers, Sebastian and Alexandre Chopin. They are really great, and they're moving this thing forward. So what is GraphQL? I think I don't have to explain it today, because I'm on the right conference. And today we will cover why SSRS, like why should we use server-side rendering? Server-side rendering is a very old technique. It's nothing new. It was done like years before by Ruby on Rails, by Laravel, by WordPress, by anything. And it's still a topic today. So who likes to share URLs or things which they find on the web? I do. Like, who likes to find things on the web, like when they're using Google or something? Like, everyone, right? But if we do websites without this, it's impossible. Almost impossible. And let's go over this topic. So how can we make a better CEO for our websites? How we make our websites faster and like they will feel like instant, and how we can achieve overall better user experience thanks to GraphQL and Next. And one problem is server-side rendering with JavaScript could be quite a difficult topic. And we are not afraid of problems. And we are not afraid of using like the same picture over and over again. So let's tackle this challenge. So what is actually server-side rendering, right? It's a simple technique. You as a client in the browser, you request some website, and the server creates HTML for you and sends it to you. That's all it has. And in our example, we can have like anything in the front end. For example, Vue, and on the back end we have different servers which might use GraphQL, which might not use GraphQL, it doesn't matter. So this is like a server-side rendering engine, like graphic would work in a normal way, in normal world. And this is how it looks when you start to render a JavaScript application. So let me explain this picture to you. First, when you first visit the website and you just enter the URL, you create an HTTP request which goes to your server. Then your server, where Next is running with GraphQL, goes to any GraphQL API of your choice and asks for the data, like a database request. Then this data comes back to the server. Server creates the HTML and sends it back to the client, where the client can immediately see the result. He doesn't wait. He doesn't need to wait. He doesn't need to see a loading spinner or anything else. And the interesting part happens much further when you start to navigate in your single-page application, let's say, and suddenly your front end gets the data immediately from the GraphQL API. It doesn't go to the server and asks for it. So it immediately communicates to the GraphQL API. So when should we use server-side rendering? First of all, when it's a public website, when you want to make it searchable, and when you just want to make it fast as well, and when you don't need it. You don't need it when it's everything protected, maybe internal dashboard, or it's behind user authentication, so you don't need it at all. We have some limits by using server-side rendering. It means we have no window object in our JavaScript world. It means we cannot use any of the browser APIs, like fetch, Ajax, anything. It just does not exist on the server. So there's no reactivity. We all like to use this reactive framework like Vue, React, Angular, but there's no reactivity on the server at all. And many of the libraries or frameworks or plugins which you might used to, they might not work on the server because they need window for something. And many of the directives and plugins for the Vue internal system might not work as well because they're not prepared for server-side rendering. And a very huge thing which happens, for example, if you start your front-end application on your browser, immediately it creates for every user a separate instance of this application. But it doesn't happen on the server. On the server, you start the server once, and then it runs. So on every request, you have actually to recreate your application with a new state, with a new view, like state management, singleton, or anything like this. You need to use different plugins, for example, Axios, or NodeFetch, or Apollo, if you want to request some data. So, next. How can we create a Nuxt application? We can just simply create a Nuxt application by using this npx create Nuxt app, and then we can go for coffee, drink water, and wait for npm to install. So after npm is installed, we will get a really simple folder structure, which I will show later in a full picture. And it will consist, it will have a pages folder. Inside this pages folder, we just will create one file, which is called index view in Vue world. Who is familiar with Vue? Who knows how to view? Great. So for the rest, I will explain. Every Vue file is consists from 3 parts: templates, scripts, and styles. So basically HTML, JavaScript, and CSS live together. And this is how we create components and pages. So let's say we will create this page and just write a simple string. And what Nuxt will do for us, it will automatically create a router behind the scenes. So we don't have to bother with setting up the router, or we can just ignore it. And it will automatically prefetch all the data for us, and also code split. If we inspect in the browser, if we click view source on our website, then we will see, okay, it rendered a string. Fantastic, great. We have our server-side rendering working. So it's fantastic. But what happens actually if we do async? So how we develop our front-end application is we execute an asynchronous call to the database or to an API of our choice. Let's say here we do a GraphQL query, just simple by creating a post request with Axios to the database, and then we wait for the response. But in this moment, if we inspect the page source, we will see an empty div again. But why? Because in this moment, it's already too late to ask for data. We need to ask the data before it gets sent to the client. So, and how can we do this? So Nuxt comes with the 3 new additional hooks, which you can use in your components. This is async data, fetch, Nux server init. And all of these three, all of them three have this common argument, which is called context, where all the data you need exist. And you don't have this, so you don't have the view instance on the server. So it means you have to use something else. And what do they do? Those hooks, they run on the server and not on the client, and that's how we can prefetch the data on the server. So our server will go actually to our GraphQL API and ask for the data. And which information can we have in the context? In the context, we have all the information which we might need to get to create a correct query to our database. And we will have query parameters. We have like a dynamic URL parameters, information about request, response. We will have a redirect function if we want to go to 404. And we will have the whole information about the route which we're on. So let's try to execute the async data just simply without using context, but just calling a speaker query with GraphQL, and then it will give us back the result with speakers. And then if we inspect the source of the website, then we will see something will be added and sent to the client. And it will actually hydrate your DOM with this information, which is needed to recreate and make your application work again with JavaScript. So, and if we check the HTML part, we will see that something is added and SSR works. Great. So it's fantastic. So, and I have a second problem. We actually break the web all the time and every time. Like I like to say always, web is responsive by default, and it works, and then we start adding things and break it. So whenever we ask for data in normal form, and when we submit a form, we cannot just submit it with JavaScript, it breaks. So we need to use this prevent default to stop the execution of the get. And this is how we lose actually the get parameters inside our URL. But we need them for server-side rendering, so we need to recreate them on every request. And URL is your friend. You can share it with your friends and just show your work, for example. By doing this, we can reproduce the state of our application by sending the correct information how we want actually our data. And if we, for example, put speaker sort and descending, it will give us the query in the right order in our markup. So, but how can we react in the front end to the changes? We cannot, because URL is static, it's not reactive. But we can make it reactive, and I will show you how. Inside Vue, for example, you have a special API for make non-reactive properties reactive, and this is how we can make also and listen to the changes of the query parameters of the route. So by listening to the query parameters of the route, we can dynamically update our queries and execute them in a smart way, and which will both work on the server and on the client. And I can tell you, URL is the base state, the best state management tool out there. It can do everything. So most of the time, you don't even need Vuex, Redux, Apollo, or anything. You can just share your state to someone else via the URL. Because on our Nux application, our backend, we need to recreate the state of the application on every single call. So I will show you how to do it in one moment. So, how to deal actually with dynamic pages. So if the part of the URL which we are creating is dynamic, we can simply access it by asking our context inside here, context route parameters, what is ID currently? Because we know it. Nux automatically injects this information to this hook. And then we can execute our query, in this case, and populate the ID, the variables with our ID of choice. And this will return our speakers. And it will work both on server and the client. And you might ask, okay, in my talk, I wrote that there will be Apollo. And you know, by using Apollo, it feels for me like cheating. Like when you're using Apollo, you don't understand what's happening. It's like everything is hidden from you. And let me show you a demo. If you use Apollo, like I zoomed out. Hopefully you can see it. I tried to put the whole huge application inside. And this is how much code you need to query the list, make it work on front-end, back-end, with pagination and everything, by simply writing this couple lines of code. And Apollo is very powerful, but sometimes you just don't need it. So, and let me show you how to query a single resource with Apollo. Apollo automatically prefetches all the resources for you. So you don't have to say what needs to be prefetched or what needs to be done. It just gets the data for you. It just handles all your work. And additionally, with Nux, you can also improve your SEO by, because Nux comes with view meta, which can control your header, where you can put titles and update the description based on which page you are on. And as well, it comes with a rich modular plugin system, where you might be the next one who will write the next plugin if you miss something. And currently, we have Apollo implementation in Nux, but it's not perfect because it does just too much magic, and you have no chance, like, to hook in somewhere. So, let me show you a quick demo. So, where's my? I cannot find my mouse. Ah, here. Okay, do you see it? So currently, we start a Vue.js application. It's a very simple, basic application. And when you navigate the pages, they dynamically change without page reload, and everything works seamlessly. And if you start to navigate around, you will see that it doesn't reload the page. It's very smooth, very good user experience. And the search works. For example, we search the Jesse. He's there, or Marion, all these awesome people who gave a talk at WebDirect. So we can use this completely with JavaScript. And the interesting part, do you see? I have this URL, and I can reload my website every time. And if I click View Page Source, I actually get the data with the correct information in my markup. And this is very important. And you can do this as well. It's very difficult to implement it afterwards. But if you start a new project and you build it from scratch with server-side rendering in mind, you can achieve very good goals. And let me show you a really, really nice side effect of it. So let's go to the settings and turn off JavaScript. What do you think what's going to happen? This is a Vue.js application. So let's go to the search. So it works. Fantastic. If you navigate around, it just works like old school server-side rendered application. If you suddenly try to sort people or search for people, it works as well without JavaScript. So stop this madness. And it works because, as I showed to you, where's my slide? Oh, let me find it quickly. Oh, so many slides. This one. So, when you're using proper links for your buttons, where you need to put links, it will work. If you use default forms, it will work. And on the server, just the prevent, without JavaScript, the prevent will be ignored, and we'll just submit the form, like in old days. So maybe your next application will be built with these technologies. And actually, it doesn't matter. It's not about Next, just about every framework out there. It can do it today. That's all. Thank you.